Since 2007, the Pentagon has been gathering information in its Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. Information for what, you may ask? UFOs, aliens, and extraterrestrials. As of May 2022, the Pentagon has close to 400 reports from the military of possible encounters with UFOs, or UAPs as they call them, unidentified aerial phenomenons. Here are 5 of the strangest alien encounters on record. Alyoshenka. In the summer of 1996, an elderly disturbed woman was going through a difficult time. Her name was Tamara Prosvernina, and she lived in Kristen, Russia, not far from Moscow. Her son had been sent to prison for theft, and meanwhile, she was suffering from mental issues. While on a walk one day in the woods, she came across a small creature by a well. The creature was making noises at her, and she proceeded to talk to it and take it home. She fed it and cared for it until she was hospitalized. The sight of this creature was shocking, to say the least. It was a humanoid being about 24 centimeters long, with a brown body and a large onion-shaped head. It had no hair, tiny lips, and large protruding eyes. The woman said she was feeding him a mixture of condensed milk and cottage cheese. Those who saw the creature were uncomfortable, and they all agreed it must have been an alien. The locals would even joke about why an alien would choose their town of all places. Some critics say the creature is not an alien, but a deformed human baby affected by the plutonium explosion of 1957. It was not uncommon for fishermen to catch fish without tails or eyes. One day, Tamara was taken to the hospital, and the creature she called Alyoshenka was sadly left unattended for days. The creature was later found in her home, dead. The body was washed with alcohol and left to dry in the sun, essentially mummifying it. Alyoshenka was unfortunately lost, but the pictures do remain. There are still so many unanswered questions, like how did the alien get there, and why was it left alone? Perhaps this is one of those stories better left unknown. Antônio Vilas-Boas. One night, on October 16, 1957, 23-year-old Antônio Vilas-Boas was working on his farm in São Francisco de Sales, Brazil. Antônio preferred to work at night to avoid the heat, and he claimed to see a red star in the sky that night. He watched the star get bigger and bigger until it took the form of an egg-shaped aircraft. When the UFO landed on his farm, Antônio decided to make a run for it. Before he could get far, a short humanoid creature captured him and dragged him into the vessel. Once in the craft, Antônio was stripped and examined by the humanoid creature. His blood was taken, and he was forced to inhale a vile gas that made him extremely sick. Antônio said he was also compelled to make love with a beautiful humanoid. He said he understood that the female humanoid wanted to carry his child. Even though the aliens did not speak, Antônio claimed he understood their intentions. The aliens were kind enough to give him a tour of the spaceship before returning him home. The whole encounter had taken just 4 hours. Antônio shared his story with a journalist, but it was met with much skepticism. He later went on to start a family and become a lawyer. Up until his death in 1991, Antônio never changed the story. A doctor determined that Antônio suffered from mild radiation after the time he claimed to have been abducted. Some doubt his story because a similar report was published in 1957. The Pascagoula Abduction. The Pascagoula Abduction case is probably the most credible alien abduction case we have to date. Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker went fishing on October 11, 1973. While out on the water, they heard a zipping sound from above, and above them was a 30-foot long flying saucer with a dome on top. The men found themselves unable to move as 3 short humanoid creatures hovered above them. They say a mechanical claw picked them up and placed them in the aircraft. They were physically examined by what they called the Big Eye. When the examination was complete, the men were brought down, as if nothing had happened. The men were terrified. Charles found Calvin with his arms raised, screaming for dear life. The men were able to compose themselves and went to the police for help. Thinking the men were either lying or drunk, the sheriff put them in separate rooms to question them. Both men passed the lie detector test, and the stories never changed. The men suffered immense emotional and mental distress. Calvin, who was only 19 at the time, left town in an attempt to run away from the publicity. Their stories spread like wildfire. Believers from all over the country flocked to Pascagoula with hopes of having their own alien encounter. Much to everyone's surprise, 40 years later, witnesses came forward to say they also saw the flying object that night, but were too afraid to say anything. These witnesses believed the abduction 100% because they saw it happen in real time. Whether or not the investigators on the case believe in aliens, they all believe that Charles and Calvin were not lying about what they believed happened to them that day. Just recently, Calvin has come out of seclusion and has started retelling the details of what happened to him. He is still trying to make sense of why he and his now deceased friend were chosen. Stan Romanek. Stan Romanek is one of the more controversial alien enthusiasts. His claims even go as aliens stealing his sperm and creating 9 half-human, half-alien children. His story starts back in 2001, where he first saw his first UFO in Denver in broad daylight as an orb in the sky. He had another encounter with witnesses seeing the same thing he saw to corroborate his story. They took videos of the UFO, and it appeared as a shaky bright light in the night sky. From then on, Stan would claim that supernatural things would always happen to him, claiming that the aliens were harassing him. One night, 3 aliens came to his home at around 2:30 a.m. He describes the ordeal. As I got closer, I started wondering if they wore masks because I could see the veins in their heads. I could see their facial movements. I could see their mouth move. I could also see their eyes blink. And as I got really close, that's when I realized that this was something different, and I started to get frightened. The aliens abducted him and put him through painful medical testing. Romanek even had X-ray images of an implant in his leg, only for the implant to mysteriously disappear. They sent him telepathic messages about Armageddon, some that he understands and some that he doesn't. He says the aliens are using him to pass a message. What do you think that is? David Eckhart. David Eckhart probably has one of the most viral alien videos to date, but his alien in the doorway video is not his first encounter with an alien. David, a man from Pensacola, Florida, said he was having alien encounters since he was a kid, but never had any evidence to prove it. To his amazement and delight, the CCTV camera in his room captured footage of a humanoid figure peeking into his doorway and stepping back. The footage is highly convincing, especially after it was thoroughly examined by videographers and found not to be tampered with. Have a look. The shape of the alien greatly resembles that of the popular gray aliens, with its long limbs, short torso, and peculiar head. Many of those who have had alien encounters also claim to have seen them on more than one occasion. David added that you can touch them when they're in a transparent state, and it feels like a wet, static electricity. There hasn't been any updates since, but it is very interesting to say the least. Alien encounters are all about what we believe to be legitimate human experiences. Not witnessing an event does not make it untrue. The alien encounters that happen to multiple individuals at once are more so puzzling. How are they able to maintain the details of their experiences without contradicting each other? Some of these people lose so much by coming forward and sharing their truth. Why would someone risk losing their respect and reputation to propagate a lie about aliens? We have instances of normal people losing their minds and going into seclusion after their encounter with aliens. Unbelievable phenomena becomes a reality every day. Reality is relative, so let's keep an open mind. You never know, you might be the next person who gets a visit from the extraterrestrial. Has any of you had any first-hand experience with aliens or UFOs? If so, let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your stories. Thanks for watching our Late Night Top 5 channel. We're a new channel and would love to have your support by subscribing, liking, or simply dropping a comment down below. To watch more interesting late night videos, click the links to continue watching more.